stand up for trans people.
Mm-hmm.
We need that. We need that from, we're being targeted by a major political party, and we need people to say no more. We need people to show up at the polls and say this is nonsense.
Phil for you.
Get this out of politics.
Yeah.
A politics of hate and discrimination.
It's a distraction.
Oh, it's totally a distraction.
We shouldn't be
Yeah.
legislating
unfortunately,
hate and discrimination.
But the laws are going through. Trans children in Texas can no longer get counseling, can no longer get like puberty blockers, because it was outlawed with last year.
This might be a place where you can help me.
Yeah.
Because I've had discussions with folks before, and I've thought, I've structured it this way.
I know where this is going. I have your answer.
I've structured it this way.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, when I was young, I listened to rap music.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it. Mm-hmm. It was right around the time they started putting those stickers on the rap music. It was like parents advisory. And I was like, those were the ones I needed to get.
Yeah.
And I exposed myself to a whole nother world, a whole nother culture. And there was cussing, and there was a lot of different, drug dealing, and just like these storytelling of kind of a underworld life in the way that they would talk about women, gangster rap and all that stuff. Yeah. And I think I was influenced by that. And the way that influenced me was probably selling dime bags and selling pot and like living a life where I kind of went that direction in some way, shape, or form. And, later on in my life, I realized, I don't think that's the best way. I probably shouldn't have been influenced that way. And when I think about the things I did as a result of that, it was, I had some marijuana tickets and I had different exposures with the law as a result of marijuana. When I think about applying that same thing to sexuality and gender discourse and like the influence of some of this stuff.
You're saying how does I
wouldn't wake up if I was exposed to transsexuality, transgender, and all that stuff as a child and influenced in that way. What would happen if I woke up as a 23-year-old man or 30-year-old man and said, like, now not only I don't have like pot convictions, but I have like boobs and a vagina. And I realized, wait, that was just influence. That wasn't really a lifestyle.
So that rarely happens. It's like less than 1% of people who transition detransition. And people who detransition oftentimes, it's not necessarily that they actively want to detransition. They often detransition because it was too difficult. They didn't have family support, or they were discriminated against. They just couldn't do it. Very, very, very rarely do people actually have true like regret and remorse over doing it. Almost non-existent.
Yeah.
It does happen, and that's valid. And I think, I think everybody's valid, in terms of where people end up. But I think the question hiding in there is, how does a child know, But
what is influence versus
but
what is
But I would also
intuition?
say like being into like rap music is much different than feeling the way that your body is.
Yeah, I want to just that's a simple and perhaps silly example, but I think the root of it is, how does one discern between an inner motivation and an inner knowing, an inner intuition of who am I? What does this all mean? And an outer motivation of, I like this is cool, this is I'm excited by this movement.
Right. And it's maybe not a pure delineation of one or the other sometimes. But, I don't, using your own words, but the inner thing is, it means that it arises, it's a feeling inside of you. It's a voice that you can't turn away. And that's generally I hate to really want to pause on speaking for our trans people, but I do think generally it's something that you hear, you feel, you can't avoid, And so that the fact that it is inner almost like clarifies it, right? It's like I knew I didn't transition until I was 44,
Yeah. But you
but
knew
I knew something was up by the time I was like 13 years old. You know,
you knew real
I
young.
felt that energy.
You knew real young.
You know, that energy was manifesting in me.
I mean, so
And
the law is just half of that. Then how do you get parents to
well, I mean,
really look
a
at
good.
what kind of kids they have so that they can have that autonomy and
Well,
independence?
I think parents should educate themselves. They should learn how to support, a child who is trans. I mean, in my opinion, a great parent receives a child where the child's at. Now, you have to parent sometimes. You have to put scaffolding down.
Yeah.
But, if I, you know, if I was a musician and I loved, playing, violin or whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
and I had done that with my child growing up, and I'd hoped that they, wanted to, play piano, violin, whatnot, and they came to me one day and they said, I actually want to learn how to repair engines. I like cars.
Yeah.
For me, maybe I wished and hoped that they would play, do music.
Right.
But I say, you know what, kiddo? I don't know any mechanics, but I'm going to find some.
Let's find a
And
mechanic and let's get a beater
And that's
car
like
and start
that.
looking at
In
it.
my mind, that as a parent, you're opening you're helping your child open the doors that they want to open.
You're meeting them
You
where
know?
they are,
Yeah.
and you're helping them realize
And a child that says,
excitement and passion that's
I-
from within
Yeah.
themselves.
yeah, and if a child says, I feel this way, then, I think parents should educate themselves and figure out how to best support it.
That makes sense
their
to
child.
me. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's, the other thing about why when young people having specifically access to puberty blockers, is that it helps their overall transition, their body. I lived under male hormones for 44 years. And that was very tough on my body in terms of being a woman's body. Had I had I known when I was 13 and, I had the structure in place and support and could have come out, I would look a bit different. My transition would have gone quite a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
My voice would actually sound different. People who are able to block puberty hormones, when before they go through that first puberty, end up having a more fulfilling, transition generally. But it just, some things kind of just go a little smoother for some people. But I want to be clear, later stage people who transition are beautiful and just as valid.
Yeah.
But I think that's why it's important it's one reason why it's important for, youth to be able to have access to those medicines, trans youth to have access to those medicines.
Yeah. Gosh, it seems young though, like 13 and 12. But it does make sense what you're saying. Like you start playing with dolls that are more feminine worlds, and you're expressing that all stuff is clear. So why not let them
and also with youth treatment, it's not talking about proactively giving them the other hormones.
It's just stopping something.
That's right. It's just helping make sure that male, in the case of a trans, feminine person, that the male hormones don't start kicking on, or, with a young trans mask person, that the, female hormones don't start kicking on. And then when they turn 18, they then start taking the actual active hormones, and that's where the fuller development happens. So that's,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. But anyways, that's a big topic.